The massive display screen in Earth's Central Command lit up with an incoming transmission. Admiral James Stone stood straight, his weathered face showing no emotion as the alien figures appeared before him. The room fell silent. The lead alien, a tall being with metallic-looking skin, spoke in a voice that seemed to drip with contempt. "People of Earth, this is the Galactic Council. Your presence has become inconvenient. Your rapid expansion and technological development pose a threat to galactic stability. Submit to our rule or face the consequences." Stone looked around the command center. 30 years of military service had taught him to read a room. And right now, despite the threat, his people showed no fear. Good. They had trained for this day. "Interesting timing," Stone said, keeping his voice level. "You wait until we start building our fleet to make contact." He adjusted his uniform, the silver buttons catching the light. "Why now?" The alien's expression shifted slightly. "Your primitive vessels have been noticed crossing the borders of established territories. The Council cannot allow uncontrolled expansion." Behind Stone, technicians worked quietly at their stations, analyzing every bit of data from the transmission. The HMS Thunderbolt, Earth's most advanced battleship, orbited silently above, its systems already coming online. Primitive. Stone allowed himself a small smile. That's an interesting choice of words. The alien leader's eyes narrowed. "Your ships still use physical matter for propulsion. Your weapons are based on crude particle acceleration. You haven't even mastered basic shield technology." A pause. "By our standards, you are children playing with toys." Stone walked closer to the screen. The alien was twice his height, but Stone showed no sign of intimidation. "Then you won't mind if we keep our independence. After all, what harm could primitives like us do?" "Unacceptable." The alien's voice grew harder. "The Council has decided. Earth will be integrated into the Galactic Commonwealth. Your technology will be upgraded. Your expansion will be controlled. Your military will be disbanded." Around the room, officers and technicians exchanged knowing looks. They had spent years preparing for this moment, building their strength in secret, developing technologies that the Council couldn't imagine. "And if we refuse?" Stone asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then we will demonstrate why the Council has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. The alien's face filled the screen. "You have 6 Earth hours to surrender. After that, we will send our deterrent fleet. Your primitive defenses will not survive first contact." Stone nodded slowly, then reached for the communication panel. "Let me be clear about our position." He pressed a button, and a massive hologram appeared behind him, showing the HMS Thunderbolt in orbit. The ship's sleek black hull absorbed nearby starlight, making it look like a hole in space itself. "This is one of our primitive vessels," Stone said. "We call it the Thunderbolt. If you send your fleet, you'll get to see what it can do." He smiled again, but this time there was steel in it. "We've watched your civilization for centuries, learning, preparing. We chose isolation not out of fear, but because we needed time." The alien leader's metallic skin seemed to ripple with anger. "You dare to threaten the Council?" "Not a threat," Stone replied. "Just a fact. Earth will not surrender. Earth will not be controlled. And if you send your fleet..." He let the words hang in the air. The alien's voice became cold. "Then you choose extinction. The deterrent fleet will arrive in 12 hours. Remember, you brought this upon yourselves." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in momentary silence. "Well," Stone said, turning to his staff, "they took that exactly as expected." He pressed his communicator. "Thunderbolt, this is command. Begin Operation Paper Cut." "Operation Paper Cut acknowledged. Command," came the reply. "All systems ready." Stone looked out the window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, humanity's finest ship was preparing for battle. The Council thought they were dealing with primitives, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating humans. "Send a message to all Earth Defense Forces," Stone ordered. "Our response to the Council's demand is simple. Come and take it." The next 12 hours would change the galaxy forever, and Stone couldn't help but smile at the thought of the Council's face when they realized just how primitive Earth's technology really was. Exactly 12 hours after the Council's threat, space rippled. 50 alien warships emerged from hyperspace, their golden hulls gleaming in Earth's sunlight. Each ship was massive, at least 3 times the size of the HMS Thunderbolt. In Earth's command center, Admiral Stone watched the radar display calmly. "Right on time," he said, "and exactly as arrogant as we expected." The alien fleet spread out in an attack formation. Their ships looked like giant arrowheads, bristling with weapon ports. Energy readings from their systems were off the charts. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Wilson from his monitoring station, "they're broadcasting." The main screen lit up again. This time, a different alien commander appeared. "This is Fleet Commander Dax of the Galactic Council Deterrent Fleet. Your time has expired. Surrender now, or we will destroy your primitive vessel and then proceed to occupy your world." Stone didn't bother responding. Instead, he opened a channel to the Thunderbolt. "Captain Rogers, you may proceed with the demonstration." "With pleasure, Admiral," Rogers replied. The Thunderbolt moved forward, its black hull making it look like a small shadow against Earth's backdrop. The alien fleet's sensors locked onto it immediately. "Your single-ship approach is foolish," Commander Dax announced. "Our shields are impenetrable. Our weapons can vaporize planets. You cannot hope to." The alien commander's voice cut off as the Thunderbolt suddenly vanished. "What?" Dax's voice cracked with confusion. "Where did it?" The Thunderbolt reappeared inside the alien fleet's formation. But something impossible was happening. The human ship was passing straight through one of the alien vessels, like a ghost through a wall. In the command center, Stone allowed himself a small grin. "Phase shift technology," he explained to no one in particular. "Quite useful when the enemy thinks their shields are impenetrable." The alien ship that the Thunderbolt had passed through suddenly went dark. Its engines died, its shields collapsed, and its weapons fell silent. As it drifted powerless in space, the Thunderbolt was already moving to its next target. "Impossible," Dax shouted. "All ships, open fire. Destroy that vessel." Energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled space, all aimed at the Thunderbolt. But the human ship shifted again, becoming partially transparent. Every shot passed harmlessly through it. "Having trouble hitting us." Captain Rogers' voice was calm on the open channel. "That's the problem with energy weapons. They only work if they can interact with their target." The Thunderbolt accelerated, moving faster than the alien ships could track. It phased through 3 more vessels in quick succession, leaving them dead in space. Their crews were unharmed, but their ships were useless. "Stop," Dax commanded. "What are you doing to our ships?" "Just introducing a bit of chaos into their systems," Rogers replied. "Your technology is impressive, but it's too orderly, too predictable. Our phase shift drive disrupts the perfect patterns your ships rely on." In less than 20 minutes, half the alien fleet was disabled. The remaining ships tried to retreat, but the Thunderbolt was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost that could not be hit but could strike at will. Stone watched the battle with satisfaction. Years of keeping their true capabilities hidden had paid off. The Council had expected primitive kinetic weapons and basic energy beams. Instead, they got technology they couldn't even understand. "Attention alien fleet," Stone broadcast. "This is Admiral Stone. As you can see, your shields and weapons are useless against us. You have 2 choices: surrender now, or we will disable every ship in your fleet. You have 1 minute to decide." The response was immediate. "This is impossible." Dax raged. "No primitive species could develop such technology. You must have stolen it." 50 seconds, Stone replied calmly. The remaining alien ships tried to form a defensive sphere, but it was pointless. The Thunderbolt phased through their formation again and again, leaving dead ships in its wake. 10 seconds, Stone announced. Finally, Dax's voice returned, now shaking with fury and fear. We surrender." Stone nodded. Wise choice. "Now, please inform the Council that their primitive opponents just defeated their deterrent fleet in under an hour, without firing a single shot." As rescue ships approached to help the stranded alien crews, Stone knew this was just the beginning. The Council would send more ships, probably hundreds next time. He smiled. They still hadn't seen what the Thunderbolt could really do. Dr. Marcus Reed stood in his lab deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching recordings of the recent battle. Even after 10 years of developing the phase shift technology, seeing it in action still amazed him. "Quite a show, isn't it?" Admiral Stone said, walking into the lab. The underground facility was Earth's most secure research center, buried under 2 miles of solid rock. Marcus nodded, his gray hair catching the light from the screens. "You know, when I first discovered this by accident, nobody believed it was possible." The screen showed the Thunderbolt passing through alien ships again. Stone watched with interest as Marcus pulled up the original research files. "Tell me the story again," Stone said, settling into a chair. "The Council will send more ships soon. I want to understand exactly what we're dealing with." Marcus walked to a small device on his workbench. It looked simple, just a metal cube about the size of his fist. "It started with this," he said. 10 years ago, I was researching quantum tunneling, the way particles can sometimes pass through solid barriers." He picked up the cube. "Everyone thought quantum effects only worked with tiny particles, but I discovered something strange. Under the right conditions, larger objects could partially shift out of normal space." The scientist pressed a button, and the cube became slightly transparent. He passed it through his solid metal desk, like it was made of air. "The first breakthrough was understanding that matter isn't as solid as we think," Marcus continued. "Most of an atom is empty space. I found a way to adjust how matter interacts with other matter. Basically, we can choose what we want to touch and what we want to pass through." Stone nodded. "And that's how the Thunderbolt can pass through alien shields and ships." "Exactly." Marcus pulled up more diagrams on his screens. "Their shields are energy fields. Very powerful, very advanced, but useless if we can simply choose not to interact with them. Their weapons are the same. You can't hit what isn't fully there." The screen showed the complex systems that made the Thunderbolt work. "The hard part was scaling it up," Marcus explained. "Making a small cube phase shift is one thing. Making an entire battleship do it while keeping the crew safe and the systems running, that took years." "And the way we disable their ships?" Stone asked. Marcus smiled. "That's the clever part. When we phase through their ships, we can choose to interact with just their control systems. We create quantum chaos in their perfectly ordered computers. It's like scrambling a puzzle. We don't destroy anything. We just make it stop working." Stone walked to a window overlooking the massive underground chamber where a second battleship was being built. And the Council never saw it coming because they were looking for the wrong things. "Right," Marcus agreed. "They scan for energy weapons, shield systems, conventional drives. But phase shift technology doesn't show up on their scans because it technically isn't there half the time." The Admiral's communicator beeped. "Speaking of the Council," Stone said, reading the message. "They're not happy. The surviving ships from their fleet just reached their territory. They're calling our technology impossible and dangerous." Marcus laughed softly. "Impossible? No, we just fought differently than they did. They've spent thousands of years perfecting the same basic technologies. We looked for new paths. How many ships can we outfit with this technology?" Stone asked. "We have 5 more battleships nearly ready," Marcus replied. "The phase shift drives are easier to build now that we understand them better, but each ship still needs a specialized crew. The technology requires careful control." Stone nodded, his expression serious. We'll need them. The Council won't stop with 50 ships next time. They'll send everything they have. Let them come, Marcus said, making the cube phase shift again. They think they understand the rules of space and physics. But humans, we don't just follow rules. We find ways around them. As if to emphasize his point, he tossed the phase-shifted cube straight through the solid wall, where it rematerialized, and landed with a clunk in the next room. Stone smiled. "Keep working, Doctor. Something tells me we're going to need every advantage we can get." "Don't worry, Admiral," Marcus replied, his eyes bright with the excitement of discovery. "They haven't seen anything yet." The warning came at dawn. Earth's long-range sensors detected a massive hyperspace disturbance. The Council wasn't playing around anymore. They were sending their main battle fleet. Admiral Stone stood on the Thunderbolt's bridge, watching as the sensors counted the incoming ships. 100, 200, 300. Lieutenant Wilson's voice grew tenser with each number. 400, 500 ships, sir. 500 Council warships just emerged from hyperspace. The view screen showed the enemy fleet stretching across space like a metal wall. Their golden ships blocked out the stars, forming patterns that were both beautiful and terrifying. Each vessel was heavily armed, their weapon ports glowing with charged energy. They'd brought planet breakers this time, Captain Rogers reported from his command chair. The Thunderbolt sensors highlighted several massive ships in the enemy fleet. Those large vessels can crack a planet's crust with a single shot. Stone's face remained calm, but his eyes narrowed. They're not here to force our surrender anymore. They're here to make an example of us. The main communication screen flashed to life. The Council's Supreme Commander, a towering figure with crystalline armor, appeared before them. "Humans," the alien's voice boomed. "Your tricks with the deterrent fleet have forced us to take extreme measures." "Extreme measures," Stone replied evenly. 500 ships to deal with one primitive vessel seems a bit much. Your phase shift technology is an abomination, the Supreme Commander declared. It defies the natural laws of space. The Council has deemed it too dangerous to exist. Stone allowed himself a small smile. "Interesting. When you thought we were primitive, you wanted to rule us. Now that you know we're advanced, you want to destroy us. That doesn't seem very diplomatic." "Diplomacy is over." The alien commander's voice turned cold. "You have 1 hour to surrender your phase shift technology and submit to Council rule. If you refuse, we will destroy your world." Behind Stone, the bridge crew worked calmly at their stations. They had trained for this, prepared for this. The Thunderbolt systems hummed with power as new modifications came online. 1 hour. Stone pretended to consider. "That's generous. We only need 5 minutes to show you something new." The alien commander laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "Your single ship cannot hope to defeat this fleet, even with your phase shift technology. We have adapted our weapons. We have studied your movements. We are ready for your tricks." Stone pressed a button on his command console. "Supreme Commander, look at your long-range sensors. Tell me what you see above Earth's North Pole." There was a moment of silence. Then the alien's crystalline armor seemed to pulse with alarm. "Impossible. There are energy readings appearing from nowhere." "Not nowhere," Stone corrected. "Just out of phase." He nodded to Captain Rogers. "Show them." 5 more ships materialized around the Thunderbolt. 5 more human battleships, each identical to the first, each equipped with phase shift drives. They had been there all along, hiding in plain sight, waiting for this moment. 6 ships against 500. The Supreme Commander's voice carried forced confidence. "You are still hopelessly outnumbered." "Numbers," Stone said softly, "aren't everything. This is your last chance for a peaceful resolution. Withdraw your fleet. Recognize Earth's independence. Let's find a way forward that doesn't end in unnecessary destruction." The alien commander's response was immediate. "Target their planet. All ships, Open fire. Stone sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. He opened a channel to all 6 human ships. Operation Paper Cut Phase 2 is now active. Protect Earth at all costs. Show them what our ships can really do. The 6 human battleships moved in perfect formation, their black hulls seeming to absorb nearby light. As the alien fleet charged their weapons, the Earth ships began to phase shift in complex patterns that had never been seen before. The Supreme Commander watched in growing horror as the human ships started to glow with a strange energy. What are you doing? Teaching you, Stone replied calmly, why it's dangerous to push a primitive species into a corner. The real battle was about to begin. The space around Earth erupted into chaos. 500 Golden Council ships fired their weapons at once, filling the void with deadly energy beams aimed at humanity's homeworld. The scene would have been beautiful if it wasn't so deadly, like a river of light flowing through space. But Earth wasn't defenseless anymore. The 6 human battleships moved with impossible grace. The Thunderbolt led the formation, and as the energy beams approached, Admiral Stone gave the order they'd been waiting for. Execute Pattern Omega, he commanded. Show them what phase shifting can really do. What happened next defied everything the Council thought they knew about space combat. The human ships didn't just phase through the enemy attacks. They caught them. Sir, Captain Rogers reported with pride. Phase reflection systems operating at full power. The energy beams that passed through the human ships didn't disappear. Instead, they curved, turned, and shot back at the Council fleet. The aliens watched in horror as their own weapons turned against them. Impossible. The Supreme Commander's voice shook. Energy weapons cannot be redirected like that. They can, Stone replied calmly, if you understand how to bend space itself. The human ships split up, each taking on dozens of enemy vessels at once. The Thunderbolt dove straight into the heart of the Council formation. As it phased through ship after ship, it left more than just disabled vessels behind. This time, the phase shift drive was doing something new. Their shields are becoming part of their hulls, Lieutenant Wilson reported, watching his sensors. The energy is getting trapped in their own systems. Stone nodded. This was Dr. Reed's latest breakthrough, using the phase shift technology not just to pass through things, but to change how they worked. The Council ships' own defensive systems were being turned into prisons, trapping them in shells of their own energy. The other 5 human ships were equally devastating. The HMS Lightning created whirlpools of phase-shifted space, pulling Council ships into zones where their technology simply stopped working. The HMS Storm collected enemy fire and turned it into a protective barrier. The HMS Thunder used short phase shifts to appear and disappear so quickly it seemed to be in multiple places at once. Their formation is breaking, Rogers announced. They're trying to retreat. But retreat wasn't as simple as they thought. The phase-shifted space around the battlefield had changed the rules. Their hyperspace drives couldn't lock onto safe coordinates. They were trapped in normal space, facing an enemy they couldn't fight in ways they couldn't understand. The Supreme Commander's flagship, a massive vessel 3 times the size of the others, tried a desperate move. It charged straight at the Thunderbolt, all weapons firing. They're trying to ram us, Wilson warned. Stone's expression didn't change. Partial phase shift. Let them come. The flagship passed through the Thunderbolt, just as Stone had allowed. But as it did, the human ship's phase shift drive activated in a precise pattern. The alien vessel's own momentum was turned against it. Its hull twisted in impossible ways as different parts of the ship tried to exist in different phases of space. The mighty flagship didn't explode. Instead, it simply came apart, its pieces drifting harmlessly into space as its crew escaped in survival pods. In less than 30 minutes, the battle was effectively over. The Council fleet hung motionless in space, most ships trapped in their own shield energy or drifting powerless. Not a single human ship was lost. Not a single alien crew member had died. Attention Council forces. Stone broadcast on all frequencies. Your ships are disabled, but your life support remains active. Your crews are safe. We will assist with evacuation. The Supreme Commander's voice came back, now humble and shaking. How did you do this? We didn't just improve our technology, Stone explained. We changed how we think about space itself. You tried to fight us with power. We fought back with understanding. As rescue operations began, Stone looked at the Earth floating peacefully below. They had won this battle, but he knew it wasn't over. The Council would have to make a choice now: adapt to a galaxy where they weren't the only advanced civilization, or risk becoming obsolete. Either way, humanity had made its point. They weren't just ready for the galaxy. They were ready to reshape it. 2 days after the battle, the Council chamber was silent. 50 alien species represented in one vast room, and not one dared to speak. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed Earth's 6 battleships, helping rescue crews from disabled Council vessels. The Supreme Commander stood before the Council, his crystalline armor dulled with shame. We lost 500 ships, he reported. Our most advanced fleet, defeated without a single casualty. Not one human ship destroyed. Not one alien life taken. From his position at the speaker's platform, Admiral Stone watched the alien leaders shift uncomfortably in their seats. The Council had invited him to explain humanity's actions. They hadn't expected him to bring proof of even more surprises. "You're not here to discuss our victory," Stone said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "You're here to learn why we hid our true capabilities for so long. Allow me to show you." He pressed a button on his wrist device. The hologram changed, showing hundreds of satellites scattered throughout Council space. They were nearly invisible, using the same phase shift technology that made the Thunderbolt so deadly. "We've been watching you for 300 years, Stone revealed. Hidden observation posts in every major system. We saw how you treated primitive species, how you forced them to join your commonwealth, how you took their resources and changed their cultures." The Council members looked at each other in shock. One of them, a tall being made of pure energy, spoke up. "This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected such widespread surveillance." Stone shook his head. "Your sensors can only detect what you believe is possible. That's why we kept our distance. We needed time to develop our own path, without your interference." He changed the hologram again. This time it showed massive shipyards hidden in asteroid belts throughout the solar system. Dozens of phase shift-capable ships were under construction. "The 6 ships you saw," Stone continued, "they're just the beginning. We have 50 more nearly complete, not because we want war, but because we knew this day would come." The Supreme Commander's voice shook. "Why show us this now? Why reveal your full strength?" "Because you need to understand," Stone replied. "Earth isn't some primitive world that needs your guidance. We're not another species to be added to your commonwealth. We're your equals, maybe more." He switched the hologram one final time. Now it showed the original data from Dr. Reed's phase shift experiments. "This technology, it's just the start. We've barely scratched the surface of what's possible when you stop thinking about space the way you've been taught." A smaller alien with scales like diamonds stood up. "Are you threatening the Council?" Stone smiled, but his eyes were serious. "No, I'm offering you a choice. Continue treating other species as inferior, and you'll find more surprises like us. Or accept that different approaches to technology and culture have value." The chamber erupted in discussion. 300 years of surveillance. Hidden fleets. Technology that defied their understanding of physics. The Council's entire worldview was crumbling. Finally, the head of the Council, an ancient being with skin like flowing metal, raised a hand for silence. "Admiral Stone, your species has done the impossible. You've hidden in plain sight, developed technology we thought couldn't exist, and defeated our strongest fleet without taking a single life." Stone waited as the Council leader floated down to stand before him. The question, the leader continued, is what happens next. Stone's answer was ready. We propose a new relationship, not rulers and subjects, but equals. We'll share our technology, including phase shift drives, with any species that proves they'll use it responsibly. In return, the Council stops forcing worlds to join the Commonwealth. The Council chamber went quiet again. It was more than a deal. It was a complete change in how the galaxy would work. Thousands of years of Council tradition, challenged by a species they'd thought was primitive just days ago. The Council leader looked at the hologram of Earth's hidden fleet one more time. Then, slowly, they extended a hand toward Stone. Perhaps it's time for the galaxy to change. Stone shook the offered hand, knowing this was just the beginning. Humanity wasn't just joining the galactic community. They were about to revolutionize it. 1 month after the Council meeting, Admiral Stone stood at the observation deck of the newly built Galactic Exchange Center, orbiting Earth. Below him, ships from 20 different alien species moved through space, their designs a mix of Council technology and human innovation. Dr. Reed joined him at the window, watching as a group of alien scientists boarded the Thunderbolt for their first phase shift technology training session. It's strange, the scientist said, seeing our secret technology being shared so openly now. Times change, Stone replied. And speaking of change, he pointed to a distant flash of light. A Council ship appeared from hyperspace, but something was different. Instead of its traditional golden hull, parts of the ship flickered with the same partial transparency as human phase shift technology. The first successful combination of Council and Earth engineering. They're learning fast, Reed noted. Faster than we expected. That's because we didn't crush their pride, Stone said. We showed them a better way, then helped them achieve it. Makes a difference. The observation deck's door slid open. Captain Rogers entered, carrying a data tablet. Sir, the first reports from the frontier colonies are in. 3 more species have requested independence from the Council. They want to develop their own technology, their own way. And the Council's response? Stone asked, though he already knew the answer. Rogers smiled. They're letting them go. More than that, they're offering technical support, if wanted. No forcing, no demands. Just help, if they choose to accept it. Stone nodded with satisfaction. This was what they'd hoped for. Not just a change in technology, but a change in thinking. The Council was learning that true strength came from diversity, not conformity. A small alert flashed on the Windows heads-up display. Images appeared showing construction sites throughout the galaxy. The Council was dismantling its forced integration centers and building research exchanges instead, places where different species could share ideas freely. There's more, Rogers continued. Remember those primitive species the Council ignored because their technology was too different? Turns out 3 of them have been working on their own version of phase shift tech. Different approach, but similar results. Not surprising, Reed said. Once you stop assuming there's only one right way to do things, you start seeing possibilities everywhere. The Thunderbolt's engines glowed as it prepared for another demonstration flight. The alien scientists aboard were about to experience their first phase shift. Stone remembered his own first time. The strange feeling of existing between states of matter, the realization that the universe was far more flexible than anyone had imagined. The Council's Supreme Commander sent a personal message, Rogers added. They've officially renamed their military fleet. It's now the Galactic Protection Force. Defensive only, no more forced integrations. Stone smiled. And Earth's role in all this? We've been asked to lead the new technology exchange program. Apparently, our habit of thinking differently is considered an asset now. Through the window, they watched as the Thunderbolt demonstrated a perfect phase shift maneuver. The alien scientists' excitement was visible even from this distance. Learning, sharing, growing. This was how the galaxy should work. You know, Reed said thoughtfully, when I first discovered phase shift technology, I worried it might start a war. Instead, it ended one before it really began. Because we used it wisely, Stone replied. We didn't just show them superior technology. We showed them superior thinking. The Council learned that true power isn't about forcing others to follow your path. It's about helping them find their own. The observation deck fell quiet as they watched more ships arrive. Each one represented a different species, a different approach to science and life. The galaxy was changing, becoming something new, something better. So, Rogers asked, "What's next?" Stone looked at the stars beyond the arriving ships. Now comes the interesting part. We've shown the galaxy that the impossible is possible. Imagine what we'll all discover now that everyone's freed to really explore. As if in answer, the Thunderbolt completed its demonstration with a complex maneuver that left ripples in space itself. The gathered alien ships flashed their lights in appreciation, a galaxy-wide applause for a new age of discovery. Humanity hadn't just earned its place among the stars. They'd helped create a whole new way of reaching for them.